65 teams to go on my road to predict all 131 teams this college football offseason. Continuing with the FBS Independents, moving on to the Army Black Knights. And this is an Army team that, much like the Armed Forces groups, play a unique style nowadays, a pretty old school style back then, but the triple option. And this day and age, you got to couple the triple option with a good scoring threat, as well as a pretty good defense, and Army did both of those last year. So we'll look at those in a little bit. Is this an Army team that you can't sleep on in 2022, and that if you see them on your schedule, you got to watch out for this Army team? Or is this Army team going to be taking some steps back from where they've been in the previous years? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate, and welcome to my channel. I'm predicting all 131 teams this college football offseason. Means I'm doing your favorite team. So go ahead and hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, so you know when that video gets uploaded to fans, to Army fans out there. You guys are going to know this team a lot better than I do. So if you feel like I missed something, want to add something, anything of the sort, leave it in the comment section down below. I'll be happy to see what you guys have to say. But let's talk about Army in 2022. This team was a 9-4 team last season. Pretty solid team in Army. Never a team that you can sleep on. It's just not. They run the triple option style of offense. They gained 375 yards per game and scored almost 33 points per game a season ago. And when you look at the defensive end, this was a really good defensive team. Only 320 yards and 22 points allowed per game. Of course, they had the back-and-forth firework event with Wake Forest this past year. And Wake Forest is back on the schedule this year for Army. And we'll take a look at the entire schedule for this Black Knights team here in a little bit. But this is an Army team that a lot of people still kind of overlook year in and year out. They're like, oh, hey, there's Army. This is an Army team that can pose a real threat to some teams on their schedule. And again, we'll look at the schedule in a little bit. But there is a key position group that Army is going to need to replace. And although Army doesn't really have a true quarterback per se, they're going to need to replace their two quarterbacks from a season ago. Christian Anderson had 713 yards passing with 5 touchdowns and was the leading rusher on this team with 619 yards and 8 touchdowns. You also have Jabari Laws, who is gone as well, had 306 passing yards and 4 touchdowns and only 43 rush yards for this team a season ago. But they're going to need to replace Anderson at that signal caller position for this triple option offense. Otherwise, you have some runners leaving this team as well. Anthony Adkins, Brandon Walters, Cade Bernard, all of them around the 100 to 300 yard range last season. In fact, here's Anthony Adkins' stat line, 355 yards and 5 touchdowns a season ago on the ground. You lose that production. On the defensive end, Noah Cockrell, gone off of the defensive line, had 2.5 sacks, 32 tackles last season. Arik Smith, Malcolm Morrison, Jalen Jacobs, some linebackers that are leaving this team. And then the defensive back position, your third leading tackler last year, Cedric Cunningham, who had 58 tackles, 4 passes defended, and 1 interception from a season ago. Now, looking at some talent that Army has coming back for 2022. Tyler, Jemele Jones are 2 quarterbacks in that room, and it's probably going to end up being Tyler that ends up getting that starting quarterback role. Hasn't really been the biggest threat passing wise, only 79 yards, only had 7 attempts last year, but rushing wise was the 4th leading rusher on this team last year with 486 yards and 7 touchdowns as well. So he's got the running game aspect of it, but now going into a full-time position as that signal caller there under center for this Army team. We're going to need to see how well that how that plays out for this Army team. Otherwise, tons of talent returning at the running back position. Tyrell Robinson initially entered his name in the transfer portal, revoked it. He is coming back for this team, as is Jacoby Buchanan, Tyson Riley, Brahim Murphy back as well, couple rushers there. And also Isaiah Alston, really the only true wide receiver on this team. You have Cole Caterbone, who is also coming back, but Isaiah Alston had 449 yards and 3 touchdowns last year. Tyrell Robinson also there with 340 yards, 3 touchdowns. Those are receiving numbers, by the way. But Tyrell Robinson was right there in terms of rushing, too. Had 609 yards for 3 touchdowns. Jacoby Buchanan, 504 yards, 12 touchdowns for this team a season ago. So lots of good rushers coming back for this Army team and lots of talented shifty players. On the defensive side of things, Bonsu comes back for this team. You also have Andre Carter, who's a defensive line linebacker position that is one of the better players at his position in the entire country. Don't overlook Andre Carter. Had 15 and a half sacks last year with 44 tackles, 1 interception, just for good measure there as well. He's a phenomenal player. I love watching Andre Carter play. And if you have a chance to sit down and watch an Army game this year, be on the lookout for Andre Carter. A couple linebackers there as well. Nathaniel Smith, Spencer Jones coming back for this team. And when you look at the defensive back positions, Markel Broughton, Jabari Moore, Cameron Jones. 3 names that are coming back on this team. Broughton was the second leading tackler last year, had 70 tackles, 2 interceptions to go along with it. Jabari Moore also had 2 picks last year. So you have a lot of experience coming back for this Army team, and I think that is going to help them greatly in 2022. As we take a look at the Army schedule, and since there are no conference games, since they're an FBS independent team, let's talk about this Army schedule. So 2 games here right off the bat that I'm very, very intrigued by for this Army team. You got to go on the road to play Coastal Carolina. Not necessarily going to be an easy game as maybe it would have been 4 or 5 years ago. No, Coastal Carolina is a team that can play. Grayson McCall, I believe, is coming back at that quarterback position. While they're losing some talent there as well off that Coastal Carolina position, especially defensively, I think especially a guy like Grayson McCall can give Coastal Carolina a real good threat to be a nice, solid team yet again in the Sun Belt Conference. That's a game that Army cannot take lightly. Coastal Carolina is still going to be a very, very good football team in 2022. So Army's got to watch out when they go on the road there. And then they play at home against UTSA. Now, UTSA is a team that is returning Frank Harris, is returning Zachary Franklin. However, they do lose Sincere McCormick, one of the better, more underrated and overlooked running backs in the nation over the past couple of seasons. They are getting a transfer in, though. I believe Traylon Smith from Arkansas is going to commit to play for UTSA. Was originally committed to play for TCU. I believe now coming over to play for the UTSA Roadrunners. So that's a big get in the running back position with all the talent they have bringing back. Army's got the game at home, but man, is that just yet another hard game for Army. So 2 hard games for the Black Knights out of the gate. You have Villanova, an FCS opponent, who's a pretty solid FCS opponent at that in non-conference, or of course, it's all non-conference because Army's not in a conference. My apologies. But you have Villanova there as an FCS opponent. Probably should be able to get that one done, although they are one of the better FCS teams. And then your first bye week. Army is very unique as they have lots of bye weeks because they play Navy at the end of the year, the week after conference championship week. So Georgia State is right here playing the game at home. And Georgia State is a feisty Sun Belt team, much like Coastal Carolina. Georgia State's a team that's going to fight and that is going to put up, is going to put up a pretty good fight for this Army team. Army can't take that team likely either. But here's the matchup that I think everyone that supports Army is looking out for. Of course, you have the Commander's Cup when you play teams like Air Force and Navy. And yes, of course, those games are important. But this game right here against Wake Forest, oh, baby. Woo! Just wow. This is a Wake Forest Army game that, if you didn't end up seeing it last year, was an absolute thriller. A shootout. Seemed like a team scored every other play. It was crazy. Offense was flying everywhere. I believe the final score was 70-56. Look for another shootout type game in this one because Wake Forest has got a lot of offensive weapons coming back for this team. That right there, I think, is going to be an absolutely phenomenal game to watch, Army and Wake Forest. Army's got to go on the road, though. To play Wake Forest this year as Army got him at home a season ago. You have Colgate this year on the schedule. Don't think Army should have too big of a problem there. Neither with ULM, even though ULM, University of Louisiana Monroe, did surprise me last year and won quite a fair bit of games. I don't think Army's going to have much trouble with them. And then you get your second bye week, and the week after you start the Commander Cup when you play Air Force at a neutral site. Air Force, another team that I'm really excited to watch in 2022. They are in a conference, though, part of the Mountain West. Should be another interesting affair there on the road at Troy. Just hit my mic. A game that, again, I'm not looking at as a huge game on the schedule as well, although still watch out for Troy. Then you have a home game against UConn. Should be pretty straightforward there. On the road at UMass, again, should be pretty straightforward. And then, of course, America's game at the end of the year against Navy, and you get that one on a neutral site. I don't think Navy's going to be very good this year. Army probably the favorite to win that one. I don't do game-by-game predictions. I do a more percentage-based. Alex, help me predict the team's record. So if the game's in red, just don't see you winning the game. If the game's in orange, I still don't see you winning, but it's college football and upsets can happen. Yellow or your 50-50 or high upset potential games. Games in yellow-green are games that you should win, but you got to watch out for teams on the other side of the ball and games in green. I like you to win those games. So 2 games in green, Villanova, Colgate. I think they should be able to win those. Games in yellow-green, ULM, think they should be able to win that one. Same thing with UConn, UMass. 3 teams right there that I don't think are going to quite be at Army's level this year. Same thing with on the road at Troy, although I do think that is your toughest game that I have highlighted in yellow-green, maybe besides the game against Navy, of course. But Troy can provide a little bit of a test, so watch out for Troy. And then that game against Navy. I do not think Navy is going to be that great this year, and you'll see that come through when I do my American Athletic predictions because, yes, Navy is in that conference. So we'll kind of see what happens there down the road with these 2 teams. But as it projects right now, Army probably going to end up being the favorite and probably should end up winning that game. The game's in yellow, though. Again, Air Force, that's going to be a really good game to watch. Air Force is usually a pretty solid team in the Mountain West Conference. When you look at the front 2 games of the schedule, Coastal Carolina and UTSA. Those are 2 very hard games for 2 teams that have been pretty good for the past couple of years. Army cannot take either one of those games lightly. Of course, you have that road game against Wake Forest there as well that I project to be yet another offensive shootout type game. I think that game is going to be wonderful to watch. And then the home game against Georgia State against another Sun Belt opponent they can't take lightly. I like this Army team coming into 2022. The only question really is, can Tyler really be that guy? Can he come in and replace Christian Anderson and Jabari Laws? That's kind of the key question here for Tyler. Maybe Jones is going to get some snaps under center there as well, but they have a lot of guys I like. I mean, Tyrell Robinson, Jacoby Buchanan, Isaiah Alston, all guys I like on the offensive side, and I really like the way that Andre Carter plays. I think this Army defense is still going to be pretty good in 2022, and I think this offense can be pretty good as well. I got Army at 9-3 going into 2022. I think this is going to be, maybe when you look at the standings at the end of the season, you're going to be like, oh, Army went 9-3. Nice, cool, good for them. I think this is an Army team that can win 10 games this year. I think they have the firepower and the offensive potential and the defensive roster to do it as well. Although I could also see the floor kind of falling underneath them and Army going 6-6. But I like the Black Knights coming into 2022, a team that a lot of people seem to have in the back of their minds that they never quite remember is there. I think we're going to surprise some people this year. I got them at 9-3. Probably end up splitting those first 2 games against Coastal Carolina and UTSA. Maybe they drop both of them. I see Wake Forest as a loss. Otherwise, take your pick on who you think Army is going to lose to. But that's going to do it for my predictions. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, everything like that. Remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. See all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.